and welcome to this edition of Consciousness Raising Online. I'm going to jump right into this. I'm not going to be long. I say that every week, like I'm a Baptist preacher. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher, and he used to make us go to church with him sometimes when he went around to the different churches. He would always say, "I'm not going to be long." I said, "Oh, Lord." That meant we was going to be there for 3 hours. And that meant they was going to take at least 3 offerings before we would get to eat. What I'm going to do is actually 2 pieces to this. And I'm doing that because one is that it's the date that's involved. This is being recorded on December the 6th. And one of the things about that is we just passed the anniversary. December the 4th is the anniversary that I observe, and many of you all do as well, because that's the anniversary of the assassination of Fred Hampton. But as I always try to do whenever I talk about the assassination of Fred Hampton, is put it in proper context. And what do I mean by that? I mean this. Fred Hampton was killed December the 6th, 1969. That was at the end of what I call the assassination decade. Okay? And the assassination decade is important to understand, especially if you didn't live through it, but even more so if you did live through it, because that decade in the United States, what occurred during that decade shaped the American political landscape for generations, even down to today. Now, what do I mean by the assassination decade? All right. Well, you can go for yourself and check the years, but trust me, these all occurred in the 1960s. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. That was a date that I always recall, because those of us who were alive enough and old enough to be aware what that meant, we all know where we were when we heard about it. But that was November 22nd, 1963. Okay? That changed the country. The second assassination that I mentioned during the decade is the assassination of Malcolm X. That was in 1965. Okay? That more so affected the black community specifically, but it affected America, although America didn't know it at the time. Another assassination during that time was the assassination of Medgar Evers. And if you don't know who he was and what his importance was to the civil disobedience movement, some people call it the civil rights movement, please go check it out, Medgar Evers. And then, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. That, of course, was April 4th, 1968. And his assassination, of course, changed the landscape, political landscape. A few months later, the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, again, reshaped the political landscape. Because what did that do? When Robert was killed, um, and in particular a few months after Martin Luther King was killed, that allowed for Richard Nixon to be elected president. And that, of course, definitely reshaped the political landscape. And I just want to mention this because I just recently retired from uh, teaching and broadcasting from Kennedy King College in Chicago. It's one of the city colleges, like a community college. And it is named Kennedy King College. And what always got me, because I would ask students this all the time, and even some of the faculty, um, I'd ask them, you know, who is it named after? And 9 times out of 10, the answer would be, oh, it's named after John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. And I say, no, it wasn't. It was named after Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, and it was named after both of them because they were both killed within months of each other. Okay? That's why it's called Kennedy King College. So for those that don't live in Chicago, and it may not be important, but you'd be surprised. At some point in time, you may run across somebody who may mention it or went there and ask them, say, what was the college named for? Who was it named for? And see. And if they say John F. Kennedy, you can correct them. Not mean, but just, for the sake of historical accuracy. Okay? Now that takes us to 1968. And as we close out the decade, we get to December 4th, 1969, just literally days before the end of the decade. And the final assassination that I mentioned is not generally included with major national figures. But see, neither was Medgar Evers, right? But I include Fred Hampton because Fred Hampton, who was 21 years old when he was killed, had just been named the national deputy director of the Black Panther Party. He was not only was he a rising figure in the Black Panther Party, he was hot. And I remind you again, he was 21. Fred Hampton came on the scene so strong and so hard. What was it? Go hard or go home? Fred was like that. And so he had impressed the national leadership of the Black Panther Party out in California, and they hurried up and made him gave him a national position. But he was the chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party when he was assassinated. And that changed the political landscape in the black community for sure, because it affected a lot of us. And I was one of them. I was right down the street from the headquarters where he was killed the morning after he was killed, or the morning he was killed. But I have to mention this because, he was assassinated. He and Mark Clark was also killed. Mark Clark was from the Black Panther Party from Peoria, Illinois. And so much came out of his assassination. Because first of all, he was killed by Chicago police, but these police were on special assignment to the state's attorney's office. And so that was essentially a hit team. You have to understand, this was a hit team. And it wasn't the first time that's ever been done. if you go back and look at the history, the true history, there was a situation where uh, Al Capone, and in the movie, what was it, The Untouchables, the movie version, it's a lot of inaccuracies in there, but one of them that really sticks out is uh, they have, what's his name, Costner, who played Elliot Ness. Well, they have this thing in the Untouchables movie where Elliot Ness's character, or Elliot Ness, throws Frank Nitti off a rooftop. Frank Nitti was number two to Al Capone, hitman and all kinds of stuff, right? And so in the movie, he throws him off the rooftop because he supposedly killed or ordered Sean Connery's character killed. And Sean Connery plays the Irish policeman who Frank Nitti, Elliot Ness recruits. So he supposedly recruits him. One of the things about that's not true is that it's not true. He didn't throw him off a rooftop. But what he did do, what did occur, is important to understand. In reality, the state's attorney of that time period, he sent a team of Chicago police who were on special assignment to the state's attorney's office to basically kill Frank Nitti. They shot him up, but he didn't die. And he ended up getting those police indicted. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the state's attorney at the time got him indicted, or made him quit, or whatever. So it's important to understand how this works. The state's attorney can actually put together a hit team of Chicago police. It's been done twice. Once with the Italian community, and once with the black community. In terms of Fred Hampton, the state's attorney was named Edward Hanrahan. And he went through this whole process of lying and stuff about what occurred. And when it all came out, it came out just like it did with Laquan McDonald, who was shot 17 times. Was it 16 times? I think it's 17 times by one police officer. There was a bunch of police there, but one police officer shot him all them times. 16 shots, 16 times. And because that video, there was a video of it, which was withheld by the mayor at the time, the mayor at the time was, what the hell, you know what I'm talking about, Rahm Emanuel. And the state's attorney, who was Anita Alvarez, they held it so that Rahm could get reelected as mayor. And because of what occurred, Anita Alvarez ended up losing her job as state's attorney, just like Edward Hanrahan ended up losing his turn as state's attorney. Now, in the case of Fred Hampton, it took 10 years for them to get through the courts because, of course, the survivors sued the city and the federal government because they knew that there had been some FBI involvement, but the FBI denied it, the government denied it, and for 10 years they denied it until it came out finally that William ONeill had been an FBI informant who had been sent to infiltrate the Black Panther Party. He rose up within the Black Panther Party in Chicago as head of security. He not only informed on on Fred and them, but he even made some Kool-Aid with drugs in them to put him to sleep. And that's why Fred was sleeping. He was drugged out when they came and shot up the place and killed him. Anyway, it came out after 10 years. And I'll never forget it because the lawyers, the People's Law Office, they stayed with that case and stayed with that case and stayed with that case. And won it eventually. And all of that came out. And also it helped that COINTELPRO was revealed during that time and all of that. William ONeill, by the way, just as a matter of historical accuracy, you know, after the Black Panther Party, they moved him out to California and had him do some more undercover snitching and all of that. But here's the thing that got me. This is a true story. William ONeill came back to Chicago. He had just filmed the first segment of a documentary, which he talked about what all he did for the FBI and what he did in terms of the Black Panther Party and Fred Hampton and stuff. He was scheduled to do a second part, but he came home. He came to Chicago and he went to visit his uncle. And this is what his uncle said. He said that he was visiting with them, and some friends had been there, and they had been talking and drinking and stuff. When friends left, he said that William ONeill went in the bathroom, and after a few minutes came running out of the bathroom, ran out of the house, and ran across the street. Well, this uncle lives right across the street from an expressway called the Eisenhower Expressway. And William ONeill ran out into the expressway, right in smack dab in the middle of it, and got killed by a vehicle. I don't know if it was a truck or a car that hit him and killed him. Okay? But here's what's so even more strange. About some weeks before that, he had been at that same uncle's house and did the same thing. That time, he only got injured. Okay? So I don't know if he was doing crack or what he was doing, but something he was doing weighed on him so bad he just lost his mind, ran out there. And that was the demise of William ONeill. I'm going to get into the subject matter because I said I wasn't going to be long. We are still dealing with this fool, and I said this weeks ago, that this Tramp would not stop what he was doing, which is acting a fool. I said it was kind of like, you rent somebody your house, and then when you tell them it's time to go, they don't want to go, so they start tearing up your house. Well, that's what Tramp is doing. He has been challenging everywhere he thinks he could the election results because he doesn't want to give up the office. He wants to stay there as King Tramp. And he's had his lawyer, his so-called personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, filing suit after suit after suit. They keep getting thrown out. But as I mentioned in a previous class or session, I mentioned that he has been doing something very evil. And that is, he has been targeting certain places to file, and in certain situations. And I said before, he has been targeting black people. And I said it in Milwaukee and Wisconsin, okay? Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, uh, Atlanta in Georgia, and Detroit in Michigan. Those particular places. And that's where the black folks really came out and carried those states. That's what happened. He carried those, we carried those states. Okay? So, um, and we said it before that he was targeting those places because those were black people. All right? And one of the things about that made it so ugly, let me see, let me get it back up here again. Okay, Milwaukee. Oh. Okay, let me go back. Okay, I wanted to stop at Milwaukee. Because he instead of, now he's been thrown out of every court they've been in, okay? But instead of him saying, okay, we'll stop this foolishness. Instead of him doing that, no. He has, as they famously say, doubled down. Okay? Now, one of the things that he just did that's even more ugly, one of the things he just did that's so ugly is that he specifically came down and accused black people of cheating. And I want you to see this because I want you to keep this in your head, especially for those Negroes who love to say that, they're Trump supporters and that he's not racist. Look, he targeted Wisconsin's black voters specifically, accused of cheating. Listen to this. Donald Trump filed a lawsuit with Wisconsin Supreme Court on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, and officially accused the black voters of committing voter fraud. But according to the suit, only the black people voted illegally. And according to the lawsuit, they cheated by doing the exact same thing as white voters. Politico reports the Trump campaign's suit, which was filed in the state Supreme Court on Tuesday morning, targets roughly 221,000 ballots cast in two heavily Democratic counties, Milwaukee and Dane, which encompass the majority of Wisconsin's black residents. The president previously targeted those two counties for the recount his campaign requested. Now, understand, they officially requested a recount for these two counties. His campaign paid $3 million for that, because they have to pay it, right? And they did this recount of just those two counties, and Biden came out with even more votes. So he wasn't satisfied with that. So now he's suing about trying to get all the black ballots thrown out, 221,000. The ballots the Trump campaign is seeking to have tossed fall into four buckets, according to a copy of the lawsuit circulated by the Trump campaign. 170,000 in-person absentee ballots. Listen carefully. As in-person absentee ballots. 5,500 ballots that had some witness address missing. 28,400 ballots from voters who claimed they were indefinitely confined. That's a quote, indefinitely confined. I'll explain that in a minute. And 17,300 ballots returned during Democracy in the Park events hosted by the city of Madison. According to the Journal Sentinel, Trump essentially alleges the four groups of people shouldn't have been allowed to vote. One, people who didn't include their address on their ballot. Wisconsin allows poll workers to write in the address if they know the person or if the voter rolls match all other information. Two, indefinitely confined voters. There was a rumor that people could vote via absentee ballot by classifying themselves as indefinitely confined during the COVID-19 pandemic. A court eventually said this was wrong, but thousands voted this way. Do you know who started the rumor? The people who run the elections. Next, anyone who attended Democracy in the Park. The city hosted events where official poll workers collected absentee ballots. Trump says this was illegal. I don't think so. And lastly, in-person early voters. In-person early voters. Technically, voters are supposed to fill out an application to vote early and mail it in. But for more than a decade, more than 10 years, voters have been allowed to come in, fill out the application, and then vote on the spot. Trump claims this is wrong. Excuse me, if it's been allowed if they've been allowed for 10 years to do it, that becomes a process that's okay, apparently. All of these claims are solid arguments to contest votes, maybe so. But that's not what Trump is doing. He doesn't want the state to toss votes from the whiter, more conservative counties. In other words, this is happening all over the state. But he just wants it to happen in the counties where black people live. Okay? So, now here's what's going to happen. They're going to throw this out too. Okay? They're going to throw it out as well. But what we have to pay attention to is that he keeps this up. He keeps it up. He's continuing to do this. And having Giuliani run around having press conferences and stuff and having these hearings. Yeah, he has these hearings. Believe it or not, this is some weird stuff. He will rent some hotel rooms. I'm talking about Giuliani. And have Republican legislatures come there and have what they call these hearings. Now, they're not official or anything like that. They're not courts. They're just hearings, and because he invites some legislators there, it has some kind of official thing of hearings, but they don't have any court value, But he's been doing this. And he's been having these crazy people come there to talk about these so-called conspiracies. And I'm talking about crazy people. And this is what really angers me, is that they keep giving these fools these processes. They give them time. They give them time. And it doesn't make any sense at all. They even call them clown shows. So why do you give clown shows time, media time? The problem is that there's some people who eat this up and think it's reality. It's not reality. It's not reality. So that's why I'll be doing these reality checks from time to time. Because we have to stop this foolishness. We got, 40-something days until the inauguration, and that gives him still time to act a fool. Okay? And that's it for today. As always, I say, no justice, no peace, no love. KNOW.